They were supposed to be on the same team. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jasmine Crockett, rising stars of the progressive movement fighting the same battles. But when AOC's innocent infrastructure question accidentally exposed Crockett's secret investigation into Democratic leadership, their alliance shattered in real time. Gerry Connolly could only watch as his party tore itself apart. The morning of March 26th carried an unusual energy in the Infrastructure Modernization Committee meeting room. C-SPAN cameras were positioned in their usual spots. Reporters waited in the back rows, but something felt different, as if everyone sensed that something unpredictable was about to unfold. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez took her seat at the committee table, her white blazer crisp and her gaze sharp. The stack of files beside her seemed unusually thick for what was supposed to be a routine budget review. The 33-year-old congresswoman had built her reputation on climate activism and social media savvy. But today she'd prepared something special, a pointed line of questioning about renewable energy infrastructure that would change everything. At the opposite end of the table, Representative Jasmine Crockett quietly organized her own documents. The 43-year-old former civil rights attorney had distinguished herself in Congress through meticulous preparation and legal precision. But the blue folder she'd brought today contained information that no one could have anticipated. Committee Chairman Gerry Connolly sat at the head of the table, projecting the calm authority that had defined his 30-year career. The 74-year-old Virginia representative had earned a reputation as the steady hand, the bipartisan deal-maker, the crisis manager, the member both parties respected. But what was about to unfold would test even his legendary composure. At exactly 2 p.m., Connolly gavelled the meeting to order. The 47th session of the Infrastructure Modernization Committee will now come to order. Today's agenda includes our 2026 budget review and renewable energy infrastructure assessment. The first hour proceeded routinely. Standard presentations, predictable questions, calculated responses. Committee members fell into their usual partisan patterns. Republicans focused on cost concerns, while Democrats emphasized social justice implications. But at 2:47 p.m., everything changed. When AOC leaned into her microphone, the room's attention naturally gravitated toward her. "Mr. Chairman, I have a question about renewable energy subsidies." Connolly nodded. The chair recognizes Representative Ocasio-Cortez. "Thank you. Dr. Richardson," she turned to the department representative. "When I examined the distribution of the $12 billion allocated for solar energy projects in fiscal year 2025, I noticed something quite interesting. 73% of these funds went to just 3 major companies: Solar Tech Industries, Greenvolt Corporation, and Atlantic Energy Solutions. What can you tell us about these companies' campaign contributions and lobbying activities?" A sudden silence fell over the room. This wasn't a standard budget question. This was scandal hunting. Dr. Richardson cleared his throat. "Representative, I'm only responsible for technical assessments. I don't have the authority to comment on political contributions." "I understand," AOC continued. "Then let me ask this. I see that all 3 of these companies are running major projects in Virginia, Texas, and New York. The Fairfax County project in Virginia is particularly interesting. A $2.3 billion contract awarded directly without any competitive bidding. Is this normal procedure?" That's when Jasmine Crockett's head slowly lifted. She looked at her blue folder, then at AOC, then at Connolly. Something sparked in her eyes, a mixture of recognition, shock, and perhaps anger. A subtle tension appeared on Connolly's face. "Representative Ocasio-Cortez, these are very specific allegations. I think it would be more appropriate to address these matters in the proper committees." But AOC wasn't backing down. "Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, infrastructure spending is this committee's jurisdiction. And this particular contract looks very problematic. I see that Solar Tech Industries CEO, Michael Crawford, has donated a total of $340,000 to your own campaign over the past 3 years. How does this align with our ethical guidelines?" That's when Jasmine Crockett stood up. Blue folder in hand, her expression was one nobody expected. "Mr. Chairman, may I interrupt this discussion?" Connolly looked surprised. "Of course, Representative Crockett. But this is currently Representative Ocasio-Cortez's time." "This is exactly her time," Crockett spoke with authority. Because what Representative Ocasio-Cortez just mentioned about solar tech industries connections. That's at the very center of an investigation I've been conducting for the past 3 months. A deafening silence filled the room. AOC turned to Crockett in confusion. What investigation? Crockett opened her folder and pulled out the first page. I've been tracking suspicious infrastructure contracts for the past 6 months. And Representative Ocasio-Cortez, every single contract you just mentioned is on my list. What do you mean? AOC's voice began to rise. What I mean is this. Crockett spread documents across the table. This isn't just about solar tech. This is a systematic patronage network. And this network doesn't just include Republicans. Connolly slammed his gavel. Representative Crockett, if you have specific allegations, these should go through proper channels. Proper channels? Crockett shot him a sharp look. Mr. Chairman, these are the proper channels. Here's my documentation. She placed a thick file on the table. Solar Tech Industries, Greenvolt Corporation, Atlantic Energy Solutions. These 3 companies have received a total of $47 billion in federal contracts over the past 5 years. And 89% of these contracts were awarded directly, without competitive bidding. AOC jumped to her feet. Wait. You knew this and didn't tell me? The reason I didn't tell you, Crockett continued in a cold voice, is because this investigation doesn't just cover Republicans. Democrats are involved in this too. And Representative Ocasio-Cortez, your own district's Bronx Solar Initiative is part of these shady contracts. AOC's face flushed red. That's absolutely ridiculous. The Bronx Solar Initiative was developed through a completely transparent process. We took community input, conducted environmental impact studies. Did you? Crockett pulled out another document. Because according to my records, the firm that conducted the environmental impact assessment for that project, EcoConsult Analytics, is a subsidiary of Atlantic Energy Solutions. And do you know who Atlantic Energy Solutions' major shareholder is? Everyone in the room held their breath. AOC's lawyer quickly passed her a note, but she ignored it. Enlighten me. AOC's voice was ice cold. Robert Chen. And Robert Chen is also a major donor to the Democratic Progressive Alliance, one of your own PAC's biggest supporters. AOC began rifling through her documents. That's circumstantial at best. You're creating conspiracy theories here. Conspiracy theories? Crockett laughed, but it wasn't a genuine laugh. Representative, I was a criminal attorney. I work with facts, not theories. And the fact is, your community-centered green energy initiative is actually part of a money laundering operation. This accusation had a bomb-like effect. AOC slammed her fist on the table. How dare you? I've dedicated my life to climate justice. You have no right to question my integrity. Crockett gathered her documents, continuing without raising her voice. Representative, I'm not questioning your intentions, but I'm definitely questioning your naivety. Do you really think you don't understand these complex financial structures? Naive? AOC's eyes blazed. I have an economics degree from MIT. You can't question my qualifications. How much expertise does an MIT degree give you in environmental law and corporate finance? Crockett interrupted. Because I worked corporate fraud cases for 15 years. And I'm telling you, your Bronx project is a textbook example of shell company manipulation. Connolly stood up, gavel in hand. Order. This discussion has become completely inappropriate. But no one was listening to him. AOC and Crockett were locked onto each other. The 30-year veteran politician ignored as if he weren't there. Shell company? AOC's voice was getting shrill. You're literally portraying my constituents like scam artists. No, Crockett continued calmly but firmly. I'm saying your constituents were victimized by you. Your green energy evangelism was exploited, and you're too stubborn to admit it. At that moment, Connolly tried to intervene. Ladies, please, we must stop these personal attacks. Representative Crockett, if you have legitimate concerns. Oh, now you're talking about legitimate concerns? Crockett suddenly turned to Connolly. Mr. Chairman, you want to talk about legitimate concerns? An anxious expression appeared on Connolly's face. Representative, what do you mean? What I mean is this. Crockett pulled out a thick file from the bottom section of her blue folder. The Fairfax County Solar Project, $2.3 billion, no competitive bidding, directly awarded to Solar Tech Industries. And in your own district. That's completely different, Connolly went on the defensive. That project was critical for economic development. It was creating jobs, providing environmental benefits, And coincidentally, Crockett opened another document. SolarTech CEO Michael Crawford is your longtime personal friend. Your classmate from Georgetown University. He was the best man at your daughter's wedding. Does this ring any bells? The atmosphere in the room electrified. Reporters began frantically typing. C-SPAN cameras recorded every movement. Connolly's voice began to tremble. Personal relationships were disclosed. I got clearance from the Ethics Committee. Ethics clearance? AOC suddenly spoke. Now she was looking at both Crockett and Connolly. Wait a minute. Did you both know about this? I didn't know, Connolly began. You didn't know? Crockett laughed bitterly. Mr. Chairman, your own signature is on these approval documents. November 15th, 2024, remember that date? I signed hundreds of documents. This specific document, Crockett held the paper up, a $2.3 billion no-bid contract. And your handwriting in this note. Expedite for Crawford. Economic urgency. Isn't this your handwriting? AOC was now speaking from a completely different perspective. Her anger had shifted from Crockett toward Connolly. Gerry, is this true? Did you personally expedite this contract? Connolly's face had reddened. Alexandria, this is a political witch hunt. Representative Crockett is spreading conspiracy theories without documented evidence. You want documented evidence? Crockett stood up, beginning to pull more documents from her blue folder. Here's documented evidence, bank transfers, email correspondence, meeting transcripts, phone records. Documents began spilling onto the table. Each page, each email printout, each financial statement increased the tension in the room. Representative Connolly, Crockett continued in a cold voice. From November 15th to November 30th, you made 47 phone calls from your personal cell phone to Michael Crawford. Average duration 23 minutes. These calls were during the contract approval process, and that's invasion of privacy. Connolly protested. Invasion of privacy? AOC was now completely focused on Connolly. These are public officials using public funds for private benefit. This is corruption, pure corruption. Alexandria, calm down. Connolly's voice was desperately pleading. You don't understand the complexities. I understand perfectly. AOC slammed her fist on the table. I understand that you and your cronies exploited our environmental justice movement. You betrayed my constituents. Now there was a literal civil war in the room. AOC and Crockett, who had been attacking each other minutes before, were now united against Connolly. Representative Connolly, Crockett spoke in an official tone. I demand your immediate resignation. So do I, AOC added in agreement. This level of corruption cannot be tolerated. Connolly looked around desperately. The other committee members remained silent, clearly uncomfortable. You can't demand my resignation, Connolly protested. This is a witch hunt. Political assassination. Political assassination? Crockett laughed bitterly. Representative, your own words are recorded. Your own signatures are documented. Your own bank records have been subpoenaed. These are facts, not political games. AOC leaned into her microphone, and I publicly declare, any infrastructure project Representative Connolly approved should be completely audited. A federal investigation should be launched. Alexandria, Connolly pleadingly began, think about party unity. Party unity? AOC's voice dripped with sarcasm. You destroyed party unity when you sold out environmental justice for personal profit. The C-SPAN cameras had captured everything. Reporters were frantically typing, calling their editors on their phones. Social media was beginning to explode. Outside the committee room, congressional staff members were rushing around. Whispered conversations, urgent phone calls, damage control attempts. Representative Crockett began carefully organizing her documents. I will be forwarding this evidence to the Department of Justice, and I strongly recommend that this committee launch an immediate independent investigation. AOC nodded in agreement. And I will include mandatory transparency requirements in the next version of the Green New Deal. No more backroom deals, no more corporate manipulation. Connolly stood up, making a last attempt. This entire proceeding is unfair. I haven't been given a proper opportunity for defense. Defense? Crockett gave him a cold stare. Representative, this isn't criminal court. This is congressional oversight, and the oversight function is working properly. Besides, AOC added, your defense contradicts documented evidence. What defense can you offer against recorded conversations? Unexpectedly, The progressive Civil War had taken a completely different direction. AOC and Crockett, initially enemies to each other, had now formed a powerful alliance against institutional corruption. Representative Crockett, AOC formally addressed, "Your investigation methods have impressed me. I would like to collaborate with you on future oversight efforts." Crockett looked surprised but pleased. Representative Ocasio-Cortez, "Your environmental expertise and grassroots networks would be valuable in these types of investigations." "This partnership," AOC declared, "will ensure that real environmental justice is achieved, not corporate exploitation." Connolly made a desperate last attempt. "You're making a huge mistake. This investigation will destroy the party." "No," Crockett responded firmly. "This investigation will clean the party. Democracy is stronger with transparency, not secrets." AOC leaned into her microphone. "And I promise my constituents, every dollar spent on environmental programs will be properly audited. No more blind trust, no more naive assumptions." When the meeting was officially adjourned, the atmosphere in the room had completely transformed. What had started as a routine infrastructure review had turned into a major political scandal and an unexpected progressive alliance. As AOC and Crockett left the room together, reporters were shouting questions. The two representatives briefly consulted in whispers, then announced they would give a joint statement. Connolly was left alone, with legal advisors and staff members urgently gathered around him. A 30-year political career had been put in jeopardy in a single afternoon. Outside the committee room, congressional corridors were buzzing with activity. Phone calls, urgent meetings, damage control attempts. This story would change the political landscape. Within hours, progressive alliance and infrastructure scandal became trending topics on social media. The C-SPAN footage went viral. News networks declared breaking news, and Gerry Connolly's steady hand reputation was permanently shattered by the truths that emerged in a single explosive afternoon. The progressive Civil War had, unexpectedly, given birth to a powerful alliance against institutional corruption. They were supposed to be on the same team, and in the end they were.